Well, I'm going to start with you, Kick. I just wondered where this kind of idea first came from. Is this something that's been with you quite a while?
It kind of arose out of really just a 20-year journey of observing fame right from the edge. I was lucky enough in a 1-year period to do a film with Tom Cruise here in London, and then another film here in London with Brad Pitt. And they were sort of the two most famous, sort of iconic movie stars of our time. And I got to observe them really up close and observe the way the world reacts to them. And it felt like I had a bit of a unique perspective on the idea of fame in the modern world and why people are trying to attain it, how they react to it. And a friend of mine said to me, if you're going to tell your own story, you should make it about something that you've got a unique perspective on, and it felt like that was it. And then I was watching Hogan's Heroes, actually, and seeing that comedy set, during the Holocaust and in the Second World War, and thinking, wow, that was 50 years ago that the show was made, and it was really groundbreaking. I mean, for comedy to exist in that thing, and I grew up watching MASH, another comedy set in war, and I thought maybe we'd retreated a bit from that bold comedic storytelling, that social media had given rise to a real fear in people around telling funny stories. And I felt like that was something I wanted to lean into.
So how did you guys first meet? You worked together, didn't you, a few years ago, is that right?
Yeah, Speed Racer.
Yeah.
Nice.
15, longer than that, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, it was 2006.
Yeah, seven.
Yeah, we met on Speed Racer, and we've remained friends. A lot of the relationships that we made on Speed Racer, including Susan and a lot of people, actually. That was a really great summer that we had in Berlin making that movie. And so yeah, Kick. 2020, I was in lockdown in Rome with my family, actually, and he sent me an email with a link to the trailer that he'd done with the boys in Australia, and it was the perfect tonic for the moment for us. I mean, we just watched it on repeat, and then I wrote back right away. I was like, listen, man, this is I'm so pumped about this idea and what you've done with it. And if I could be a part of it, I mean, I would love to I'll do anything you ask me to do, because I just loved the tone of it. I loved the humor in it, and I also kind of, even from the trailer, I mean, I got a sense of the things that he was going to be skewering and sort of commenting on the world that we live in now with social media and this sort of desire for instantaneous TikTok fame, and which I think is, a really important thing to make fun of and shine a light on right now. I mean, honestly, but yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like you said, it does shine a light on society, but at the same time, it's quite over the top. It's very outlandish in parts. I just wondered, when something's quite absurd in a good way, is there in isolated moments on set, do you ever look around and just think, this feels really silly?
Oh yeah. There's a moment at the beginning in that first episode, at the end, when the director is giving us his speech about the snakes and the iguanas, and Matthew, I mean, there's a bit of a spoiler alert. I won't say what happens. Something happens to his compadre, the other American, and I leant forward and said to Matthew, and I said, after that happens, sing to him. And I could feel, he was sitting in front of me, and I could feel him, just his whole body sort of tensed up, and he was like, there was a moment of like, am I really going to fucking do this? And then, but he did straight away. He was just like, yeah, and he just saw it and was like that, he could see why that American Lieutenant Pete would do that in that moment, this patriotic song. And he did it, and mate, I could show you the footage on my phone. No one lasted longer than about 3 seconds. He started singing, everyone was just holding it because it was like, God, this is so funny. And then the whole room just lost it. But moments like that, there was certainly a few moments where we sort of
every day.
Man,
Every day.
What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, the real challenge, honestly, was just, maintaining, staying in character in the scenes. And even when you were like, I remember moments where the boys would be like across from me, and I'd be like in Benny's face or something, and seeing out of the corner of my eye, out of the periphery, like people starting to like bust, and just staying in it as long as you possibly could. And then cut would happen, and we'd all just, I mean, it was a real blast to make.
Because I think comedy is quite a vulnerable form of art in some ways. Because with you, Matthew, did you just have to, like in moments like that when you asked to sing, do you just have to give yourself to something like this? I guess because you have to just lose any sense of any barrier, I suppose, in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and speaking about the moment of like when he leaned forward and said, "Sing to him," and I know that I did. It's so true that there was an immediate like, "Oh, Jesus," but the environment the Kick created on the set, and he would tell you this. One of the things he wanted to do as a director was just give everybody permission to fail. You know, just like let's try everything. Let's really go for it. And that energy was in every part of the show, all the way from every actor, the camera guys, everybody, bit of the crew. And so that energy just afforded you the opportunity to just go for it and laugh at yourself, laugh at the whole situation, and try to make it as funny as possible.
And that's where I had a slight advantage, because everyone in the show really is my friends for a long time. And Matthew, I think I had a certain level of trust, luckily, that he knew that if it wasn't funny, if it didn't work, that I'm not going to put it on television. It wasn't a director that he didn't know that might sort of take advantage of it, whatever. He knew that I'll only use what's funny. I'm going to make you look good on screen, you know, in a humorous sense. And so, you know, everyone felt a bit safe that their friend wasn't going to betray them.
Yeah. Because I mean, watching this, it feels like there is no barrier to your comedy. I mean, you took things as far as you wished, I imagine. But with that in mind, was there anything during the writing process that you thought was too much? And I dread to imagine what that too much could have been. But did you ever have to curb yourself, or did you just go for it?
Not really, no. There was, I'm trying to think of something, but it was really just you know, my philosophy is that if you're aiming for funny, it's a really easy metric in my mind. It's either funny or it's not. So there's sort of the idea of it being too far or not far enough, whatever, is sort of irrelevant for me. It was just as long as it's funny. And also I had this amazing tool that all the actors aren't comedians. So every actor in this show, you could flick a switch and make it a drama, and they would all be probably better off than they are in this show, because they're all dramatic actors and we have Oscar winners in it, and you know, huge stars who have a massive legacy of dramatic work. Being funny was a really amazing resource as a director to use, because you could sort of ask people to do quite extraordinary things. As long as the idea behind it was funny, I knew it could work. They didn't need to be funny when they were saying the line.
When we say a metric, is that something that just makes you laugh? Did you have someone to test lines on, like a family member or
It was really the group.
Yeah.
We wrote the scripts, you know, Matthew would read them, and he was in Rome, you know, he would read them and he'd ring up and say, "Oh, it's really funny, da da da." And the boys and I were doing table reads during lockdown, we're doing Zoom. Really, it was just the idea of, my philosophy on set was really just best idea wins. So I loved anyone just throwing ideas out, and if it was funny, we'd do it, and if it wasn't, we wouldn't.
And one of the running jokes in this, obviously, is that people just like Australians. Why do you think that is? I mean, I'm a big football fan, and our team's just been taken over by an Australian. We were just obsessed with him. And there is a sense of Ange Postecoglou.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow, yeah.
We love him.
Yeah.
And also, like you're saying, he lets his team fail on the job a bit, like you were letting your actors do it. So.
Well, he's a very good example, Ange. My theory on it is that I've developed over 20 years, is that Australians aren't chameleons. We don't adapt to our situation. So a lot of managers will come into Ange's shoes and present themselves a certain way, whereas he's just been him. He can't help but just present himself the way he is. So if the team wins, he's Ange. If they lose, he's Ange. If the media are attacking him, he's Ange. If they're on his side, he doesn't change. Whether he's at a funeral or a wedding or on an airplane or on a submarine, he'll be exactly the same. And I think that's, Australians have a real respect for that. Don't change. We have a real objection to someone, you know, if someone from your school gets a really good job and you see them in the street in a suit, they better say to you like, "Oh mate, don't worry about the suit." Because if they don't say "don't worry about the suit," you walk away and you go, "He's changed, mate. He's wearing the suit." So yeah, I think that's probably, that is quite intoxicating for others to see in Australians a little bit.
Yeah, they are quite annoyingly funny, aren't they? I think.
I think so, yeah. I mean, apparently the New Zealanders kind of disagree with that, though, because we were doing an interview with like a New Zealander, and you know, there's sequence in the show where he's like, "Oh, the freedom fighters can't kill the Australians because everybody loves Australians," and she says, "Why?" And he goes, I don't know. And we're thinking about like putting a little subtitle stamp that comes in and goes bink underneath that, except for New Zealand.
Yeah, because all the press we did for New Zealand, they kept saying like, "Do you think that's true? That everyone loves Australians?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, it feels like it, but now maybe there's an exception." Yeah.
You've mentioned some of the kind of the huge. I mean, this ensemble's incredible. Sean Penn and Susan Sarandon, of course. I mean, how did they come to be involved in this?
Susan, Matthew and I worked together with on Speed Racer, so she's always been a friend of ours and huge support of mine, and always very encouraging of me to do something like this. So, and she said, I rang her up and said, "Hey, I wrote this role, for you to interact with Brian Brown and and moving forward, we've already shot some stuff for the show moving forward that's not in series 1, but it'll be in the show down the road that involves Matthew's character and Susan, which is really cool. It's actually probably my favourite scene in the whole show that's not in the show. But and then, Sean, through a series of extremely fortunate events, he saw the same teaser that Matthew saw that we made, and he loved it, and he got my number, rang me up and said that he thought it was perfectly inappropriate, and he wanted to help me get it made. And now he's sitting there in the show and produced the show. It's pretty wild.
Yes, it's like Speed Racer really kind of made, you got some, sometimes, is that quite normal or quite rare to go onto a set and have build this many sort of relationships out of it? Because it sounds like you guys have really stayed in touch, and it sounds like a special experience, don't you?
Yeah, Speed Race was definitely a special one, with the friendships made.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to be, the fact that Susan's in there, it's just killer. She's such a classy lady.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, guys. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Stefan.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys.
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys.